for this holiday is actually the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, which talks about 4 different kinds of New Years. And one of them is Rosh Hashanah, we all know, is Tishrei. And the second one is the Rosh Hashanah of Ilanot, which is the New Year of the Trees. And the reason that it's called the New Year of the Trees is because in the time of the Bible, and when we had the Beis HaMikdash, this was like the fiscal year for trees, which marked the counting from, let's say, new trees, you don't eat the fruit for 3 years, and that's called the Mitzvah of Orla. And the counting starts from one Tu b'Shvat to another. And the tithing process also counts from one Tu b'Shvat to another. So that's why Tu b'Shvat has this basis, you know, in the Torah. But in actual practice, the full-blown Seder that we're going to try to a little bit have a taste of and a flavor of tonight goes back to the time of the 16th century with the mystics of Tzfat around the Arizal and Rav Chaim Vital. They put together, these are the same people that designed the Chazozi and the whole Kabbalat Shabbat that we sing so joyously. And these are people who were very into celebrating everything with joy and also seeing a very special connection between what we do down here and what we do up and what happens up there. So their idea was to develop the Seder program because it was the time that nature was renewing itself and the trees were beginning to become vibrant and alive again, to bring down the blessings from above by our expressing our gratitude to Hashem with all of the blessings and the songs and the learning of Torah. And they devised a program where they sat really the whole night almost doing exactly that. And they celebrated around 30 different fruits, 10, 10, and 10 for each of the 3 creation worlds. Just like the rabbi reviewed, the world of action, which we're starting with, the world of formation, and the world of creation. And they celebrated and blessed these fruits as a way of blessing them with the 10 energies that Hasidim talk about around creation, around the world of creation. And that's the way they saw a way of bringing down, in Hebrew the word is shefa, or bounty, from above to down here. And it was their way of sort of reenacting the connection that they always saw between what happens in the world of action down here and what happens in the divine world that we don't see above. Now, just another little interesting thing for all of you just to think about. I'm just going to touch on it very lightly because the hour is late and we want to move through experiencing these different worlds, is that the mystics of Tzfat, you all wonder, why do we call this a Seder? Why do we have 4 cups? Okay? In their eyes, there was a very profound connection between what we do on Tu b'Shvat and what happens on Pesach 8 weeks later. And of course, this year, everybody knows we have an extra month of Adar because it's a leap year. But that's not typical. Typically, we have 1 month of Adar, and the 15th of Shvat is exactly 2 months before Pesach. And you will see we will go through 4 cups of, well, we're using grape juice. They use wine. They not only use wine, they set the table with the most beautiful fabric, with flowers, with incense, with candles. They just went the whole 9 yards. And they went from the cup of white wine to mixing a little bit of red, a little more of red, until the last cup was full-blown red. And the idea was this represented the whole progression from the whiteness and the bleakness of winter to red, which is the expression of flowering and blossoming. And this is the way they, saw their participation in bringing life, to that whole divine process, and also affirming their very deep connection to nature, which they believed in. And just two more comments, and then we'll, go on to the next world. What they saw as a connection to Pesach was, I said earlier that, Hasidim believe that everything that happens down here has a counterpart in the divine world up there, and vice versa, and there's a constant interaction and almost a mirroring that goes on. They also believe, for that reason, that we have an integral connection with nature. And in fact, Reb Shlomo, one of his favorite Torahs was, he used to repeat, I think it's the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, that it says in Pirkei Avos, if a person walks and they're learning, and they stop their learning and they say, how beautiful is this tree? The rabbis say that he is guilty of a transgression. And so the question is, what is the transgression to say that a tree is so beautiful? And Reb Shlomo used to say, because a person, when they're learning especially, should so see their connection with nature that there should be no break. They shouldn't have to stop and say anything. It should all be one continuous experience. Now, to the mystics of Safat, there was also, as I said earlier, a tremendous connection between Tu B'Shvat and the redemptive process that happens in the breakthrough of Pesach. And they saw this in the sense that, especially for Hasidim, every mitzvah has a preparation period. And to a Hasid, the preparation for a mitzvah is almost sometimes more than the mitzvah. Is that right?
Yep.
Rabbi, did I say that right?
Great.
So, what they saw happening, that since we were commemorating Yetziat Mitzrayim, which is the central defining experience of nationhood, they realized this was awesome. And they have to start getting ready months before. And the months of preparation that they saw was the kind of internal work that people need to do on themselves to be ready for redemption. Like we just read in the Parsha last week, Hashem decided not to take Bnei Israel the shortcut to Israel, which he could have done, because he felt they needed to go a longer way to get ready. The same idea. And so the getting ready that they saw happening was especially in these 3 months, where, again, another Hasidic source, the Pri Tzaddik, spells out the fixing for each of these 3 months, which are very important to these group of Hasidim. And that the fixing that starts in Shvat is Shvat L'Ita. We fix eating, believe it or not, by celebrating and enjoying all of this bounty and making blessings and doing learning. We're kind of bringing a certain holiness to physicality. And the expression, in Hebrew is Shvat L'Ita. Shvat is the time when you eat to satiation, but you kind of have certain boundaries that you keep in mind. And the boundaries that they had in mind was bringing this kind of holiness to the physicality. Other ways of doing it, we know the expression in Gemara, Ilana Dechaya is another word for tzedakah, which is